Imagine for a second, right, that you are the CEO of a highly successful company. You've got a great team, incredible revenue, but suddenly your core servers just start crashing.
Right, like completely shutting down.
Yeah, exactly. Every single afternoon at like 2:00 p.m.,
Okay.
the system is lagging, crucial data is just vanishing, and your entire infrastructure basically feels like it's operating in quicksand. So what do? I mean, you call IT.
Of course you do.
You demand a diagnostic.
Oh.
But instead of running tests or, upgrading the system, the IT tech just looks at you, shrugs, and says, well, those servers are a few years old now. You're just going to have to get used to the website being down most of the day. It's just part of the server's life cycle.
I mean, you would fire them before they even finished the sentence.
Right.
You would demand a patch, a hardware upgrade, a completely new vendor. You certainly wouldn't just accept a permanent system crash as the cost of doing business.
But, and this is the crazy part, in the world of women's health, particularly for women entering midlife, that exact scenario plays out in doctors' offices like thousands of times a day. We are literally told to accept the system crash.
It's wild.
It really is. So today we are taking a deep dive into an intersection that completely upends how we talk about executive performance. We are looking at how a woman's physical health directly biologically powers her professional leadership capacity.
It's such a crucial topic.
It is. And the thesis we are working with today is pretty provocative. It's this idea that you cannot separate personal leadership from professional leadership because, well, your biological body is the physical asset behind every single strategic decision you make.
It really forces a total reevaluation of what we even consider, professional development.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. To guide this deep dive, we are examining a truly compelling synthesis of lived experience and medical science. Our foundation today is a powerful review written by a seasoned leadership coach named Karen Atiles.
And we'll spell out that pronunciation for those taking notes. It is Atiles.
Atiles.
Yeah. Karen brings a very raw, very personal story of hitting a devastating physical wall. And she basically uses her own crisis to frame the biological insights of a renowned longevity specialist, Dr. Vonda Wright.
And I want to make sure we keep the attribution super clear as we go through this because, we have two formidable minds at work here.
Yeah, fair.
Dr. Vonda Wright is an orthopedic surgeon, a longevity specialist, and she's the author of the book Unbreakable, A Woman's Guide to Aging with Power.
Right, so all the medical protocols, the biological frameworks.
The specific terms we'll dissect today, all of that belongs to Dr. Wright and her book. But the leadership lens, the profound personal application, and the story of medical gaslighting and advocacy, that is entirely Karen's lived experience anchoring the review.
It's a great combination. Though before we jump into the biology of that experience, I do need to offer a gentle, clear reminder for everyone listening.
Always important.
Right. We are unpacking one woman's personal story alongside informational scientific research today. We're exploring concepts, not diagnosing. This deep dive is not medical advice. You should always consult a qualified healthcare provider about your own body, your own symptoms, and your own treatment path.
Absolutely, because, data without a human face is just noise anyway. We have to start with Karen's reality because it's the catalyst for this entire paradigm shift.
Yes, that's the stage.
Karen is someone who built her entire career on the concept of resilience. I mean, she literally teaches executives how to adapt, how to mentally power through adversity. She's the founder of a proprietary framework called Intentional Resilience, or IRX.
So she knows what she's doing.
Exactly. This is a woman who knows how to optimize her mind.
She understands the software of leadership better than almost anyone. But a couple of years ago, her hardware began to inexplicably fail.
Just out of nowhere.
Pretty much. She was suddenly hit with a wave of symptoms that shattered her baseline. We are talking about debilitating, bone-deep fatigue. Energy that didn't just fade, but seemed to vanish overnight.
Wow.
Her libido completely disappeared. And, perhaps most alarming for someone with a highly disciplined lifestyle, the muscle mass she'd worked for years to build was rapidly melting away.
Just melting away.
Yeah, being replaced by body fat, despite her changing absolutely nothing about her diet or her exercise routine.
I want to pause on that muscle loss because if I'm working out the exact same way, eating the exact same way, and my body composition radically shifts toward fat and weakness, my first thought isn't, oh, I guess I'm getting older.
Right, it's alarming.
My first thought is something is metabolically broken. So, she does what any proactive leader does, right? She seeks expert counsel. She goes to her healthcare providers looking for a roadmap.
And the response she received is, unfortunately, what traps so many women.
This part is so frustrating.
It really is. Her providers looked at this systemic, life-altering shift in her physiology and essentially just offered platitudes.
Like what?
She was told, that's just part of being a woman. She heard, you're getting older. And the most dismissive of all, you'll just have to get used to it.
I literally felt my blood pressure spike just reading that in her review. It is the literal equivalent of the IT guy saying, the servers are old, get used to the downtime.
Exactly the same thing.
They offered no hormonal education, no metabolic panel analysis, just a mandate to lower her expectations for the rest of her life.
And Karen described her reaction to this dismissal with a phrase that I think perfectly captures the psychological toll. She said she felt sad mad.
Sad mad. I mean, let's pull that apart because that's so evocative.
It really represents a dual trauma. The mad part is the fury at the systemic medical dismissal. It's the realization that she was being told to just quietly accept physical degradation without a fight.
Right, and the sad part.
The sad is the profound grief of mourning a body that felt like it was betraying her. She felt like a stranger in her own skin, doing all the right things, but getting penalized by her own physiology.
It seems like an incredibly lonely place to be, especially because she is a resilience coach. I imagine there's a heavy dose of imposter syndrome there.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're standing on a stage telling CEOs to optimize their output, but you can barely keep your eyes open at like 3:00 p.m., you start to internalize the failure.
That is the insidious nature of this phase of life. When your physiology fails and the medical establishment tells you it's normal, you just assume it's a moral or disciplinary failing on your part.
You blame yourself.
Right. You think, I must not be trying hard enough. I need to wake up earlier. I need more willpower.
But willpower doesn't fix a chemical deficit. And to Karen's immense credit, she refused to set up camp in sad mad. She realized that she wasn't failing at resilience.
Exactly.
Her body didn't need more mental toughness. Her body was screaming for medical advocacy.
And that realization shifted everything for her. She stopped trying to positive think her way out of a physiological crisis. She pivoted to relentless research, which actually led her to understand the profound role of hormones in midlife.
Yeah.
She realized she needed a specialist who understood hormone replacement therapy, or HRT.
I feel like HRT is one of those terms that carries a lot of cultural baggage, mostly from outdated studies, but for Karen, finding a provider who actually understood her endocrine system was the major turning point.
It was everything.
She finally got targeted physiological support. And the transformation she describes is just staggering. The brain fog lifted, the crippling fatigue dissolved. She went from barely surviving her schedule to actually thriving again.
Which forced a massive professional evolution for her, too. Because if you think about her proprietary IRX framework, right?
Yeah, intentional resilience.
Right. Traditionally, it's heavily focused on cognitive behavioral strategies, how you perceive adversity, how you reframe challenges.
Yeah.
It is very mindset heavy.
Right, it's the software.
Exactly. But her personal crisis proved a hard limitation to that framework. You cannot growth mindset your way out of severe estrogen depletion.
So true.
If you have no metabolic energy in your cells, if your neurotransmitters are starved of their regulatory hormones, all the executive coaching in the world is not going to get you out of bed feeling vibrant and sharp.
She uncovered a massive paradox in the leadership world. I mean, she was facilitating these high-level strategic planning sessions, telling her clients, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
Yet, her own physical cup was bone dry.
I think we all do this, honestly.
Yeah.
We memorize these self-care adages, but we apply them exclusively to our Google calendars, not our biology.
Oh, that's such a good point.
We think filling the cup means taking a Sunday off to read a book or like delegating a project to a junior partner. We almost never consider that filling the cup means optimizing our endocrine system or preserving the mitochondrial density in our muscles.
I want to put a pin in that thought for everyone listening right now. Ask yourself, how often do you push through physical exhaustion using sheer willpower?
Probably every day.
Right. How often do you ignore the joint pain, the vanishing energy, the inability to focus, and just white-knuckle your way through a board meeting? We have this culture where we wear our physical exhaustion like a badge of professional honor, when biologically it is a flashing check engine light.
It really is. So because Karen realized she needed a biological blueprint to match her professional blueprint, she went looking for answers and found Dr. Vonda Wright's work.
Specifically her book, Unbreakable.
Yes. And this is where the deep dive takes a pretty sharp turn into the hard science of longevity, because the very first major concept Karen pulls from Dr. Wright's book is a radical decoupling of two words we use interchangeably all the time: aging and declining.
We treat them as exact synonyms.
We do, but Dr. Wright's central thesis is that they are fundamentally different processes. We cannot stop chronological aging. The clock ticks forward.
Right, birthdays happen.
Exactly. But a massive percentage of what we culturally associate with getting older, the frailty, the cognitive slowing, the loss of mobility, is actually not an inevitable function of time.
Wait, I need you to break that down. Because if I look at a 75-year-old who uses a walker and struggles to remember names, society tells me that it's just what being 75 looks like. How is that not inevitable?
It comes down to the difference between lifespan and health span.
Okay.
Lifespan is simply the duration of your life. It's a metric of time. And modern medicine is exceptionally good at extending lifespan. We have pharmaceuticals and surgical interventions that can keep a human heart beating for decades.
Sure, we can keep people alive longer.
Right. But health span is the period of life spent in robust health, free from chronic disease and disability. It is the number of years you remain physically independent, cognitively sharp, and vital.
Okay, so lifespan is just being alive? Health span is actually living.
Precisely. And Dr. Wright's argument, backed by extensive physiological data, is that decline, the shrinking of the health span, is heavily influenced by lifestyle choices made decades before the frailty even appears.
Oh, wow.
The daily compounding effects of how we manage inflammation, nutrition, sleep, hormones, and movement dictate our health span far more than our birth year does.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Karen applies this brilliantly to the corporate world. She points out that leaders will not blink an eye at authorizing like a $50,000 budget for new CRM software or paying for expensive executive retreats.
Well, never. It's just a business expense.
Right. They constantly upgrade the external tools of their business, yet they will completely neglect the single biological asset that actually makes the strategic decisions.
It's the ultimate blind spot. You are optimizing the external tools while actively letting the internal operating system degrade.
Yeah.
If you believe your emotional regulation, your strategic foresight, and your ability to synthesize information are your most valuable professional traits, then Dr. Wright's thesis demands you treat your physical health span as a non-negotiable business investment.
So if we accept this premise, right, if I realize that my physical capability directly dictates my leadership ceiling, what is the primary tool I use to manipulate my health span? Because when I think of longevity, my mind goes to, I don't know, green juice and heart health.
Yeah, that's the common perception.
But Karen's review highlights a completely different biological asset from Dr. Wright's book.
The ultimate asset for physical longevity, according to Dr. Wright, is muscle. And we really have to completely re-educate ourselves on what muscle actually is.
Yeah, because normally when we talk about muscle, especially for women, the conversation just gets hijacked by aesthetics.
Exactly.
It's always about looking toned in a sleeveless dress or dropping a dress size. But Dr. Wright is talking about muscle as a survival mechanism, right?
Actually, it's much more than a survival mechanism. It is a functional, communicative organ. The medical community is increasingly classifying skeletal muscle as an endocrine organ.
Hold on, an endocrine organ?
Yes.
I thought endocrine meant glands, like the thyroid or the adrenal glands. How can a bicep or a quad be an endocrine organ? Like, what is it secreting?
This is where the biology gets fascinating. When you contract skeletal muscle, especially under mechanical stress like lifting a weight, the muscle fibers secrete proteins and peptides called myokines.
Myokines, sir.
These myokines travel through the bloodstream and communicate with almost every other organ in your body. They help regulate metabolism, they heavily influence systemic inflammation, and they even cross the blood-brain barrier to promote neurogenesis.
Wait, neurogenesis?
Yeah, the creation of new brain pathways.
So my muscles are literally talking to my brain?
They are actively protecting your brain. But here's the crisis point Dr. Wright identifies. As women age, and specifically as they go through the hormonal transition of midlife, muscle loss accelerates aggressively. It's a condition called sarcopenia, but it happens at a much faster rate during this specific biological window.
And if muscle is an endocrine organ, losing it isn't just about getting weaker, it's about losing a massive regulatory system.
Exactly. Let's look at metabolic health, for example. Muscle is the primary tissue that dictates your insulin sensitivity.
I hear insulin sensitivity thrown around constantly by fitness influencers. What does that actually mean mechanically for, a busy executive?
Think of your muscle cells like a highly absorbent sponge, and glucose blood sugar from the food you eat is water. When you have dense, healthy muscle mass, that sponge is large and receptive.
Makes sense.
When you eat, insulin acts like a key, unlocking the muscle cells so they can soak up that glucose and store it as glycogen for energy. That is high insulin sensitivity. The system works efficiently.
So what happens when the muscle melts away, like what Karen was experiencing?
Your sponge shrinks. It becomes saturated and resistant. Now, when you eat, the glucose has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It stays in your bloodstream. Your body panics and pumps out more and more insulin to try and force the blood sugar into the resistant cells. High circulating insulin and high blood sugar lead to massive systemic inflammation.
And systemic inflammation is the driver of that brain fog Karen experienced.
Yes, and it also dictates your energy levels because you are losing mitochondria, the cellular structures that produce ATP, which is your body's energy currency.
Right, the powerhouses of the cell.
Exactly. Less muscle means fewer mitochondria, which means a literal, measurable drop in how much energy your body can physically produce.
But wait, the source material also mentions bone density here. How does a shrinking muscle sponge relate to my skeleton?
Through a mechanism known as Wolff's Law. Basically, bones adapt to the stress placed upon them. Muscle is attached to bone via tendons. When a muscle is large and strong and it contracts forcefully, it pulls hard on the bone.
Okay, I'm picturing that.
That mechanical tension signals the bone cells, the osteoblast, to build more density to withstand the pulling. If you lose muscle mass, you lose the mechanical tension.
Oh, I see.
The bone assumes it just doesn't need to be strong anymore, so it starts to become porous and brittle. That is the direct pathway to osteoporosis.
Which perfectly explains why Dr. Wright's prescription isn't just go for a walk or do some light yoga. She is adamant that women must lift heavy weights.
It is a non-negotiable requirement for Healthspan. You have to apply progressive overload to force the body to maintain and build that vital tissue. You literally have to build structural armor.
Structural armor. I love that phrasing. When Karen read this, it must have been such a profound moment of clarity.
It had to be.
She had been beating herself up over her discipline, thinking her body was just giving up. In reality, she was trying to run the newest, most demanding executive software on an old operating system, and she wasn't plugging the laptop into the charger. Lifting heavy, building that muscle is how you upgrade the hardware.
But to fully understand how to upgrade the hardware, we really have to understand why the crash happened so suddenly.
Right.
Why does this muscle loss, this metabolic chaos, hit women so aggressively in midlife? Dr. Wright coined a term for this specific physiological window, and it is a brilliant linguistic reframing.
The term is menolescence. I had never heard this before reading Karen's review, but the moment you hear it, it makes so much sense.
It immediately connects to a concept we all understand: adolescence.
Yeah.
We view adolescence as a massive, turbulent, biologically driven transition phase.
Yeah, we expect teenagers to be a mess.
Exactly. It fundamentally changes the skeletal structure, the neurochemistry, and the emotional regulation of a human being. We expect it to be disruptive. We give teenagers a massive amount of grace, medical understanding, and societal support because we know their bodies are undergoing a chaotic metamorphosis.
But when it comes to menopause, the cultural script completely flips. Adolescence is treated as a blossoming into adulthood, while menopause is treated as a shameful fading into obsolescence. It's infuriating.
Dr. Wright argues that the biological magnitude of menopause is equal to, if not greater than, adolescence. And the primary driver of this chaos is the disruption of a hormone we have vastly misunderstood: estrogen.
We have to unpack estrogen because the cultural narrative is that estrogen is purely a reproductive hormone.
That's the myth, yeah.
Its only job is to manage the menstrual cycle and fertility, so, when you are done having kids, you don't need it anymore. But Dr. Wright tears that assumption down completely.
She exposes it as a massive medical blind spot. Estrogen is not just a reproductive hormone, it is a master regulator for the entire female body. There are estrogen receptors located in almost every major system.
Give me the physiological breakdown. Like, where are these receptors and what are they doing when I'm, say, sitting in a board meeting trying to analyze a financial report?
Well, let's start with your brain. You have a high density of estrogen receptors in the hippocampus, which is your center for memory and learning. Estrogen helps regulate the synapses there, keeping your memory sharp and your cognition quick.
Okay, that's huge.
You also have receptors in the hypothalamus, which regulates your body temperature.
which explains why when estrogen drops, the hypothalamus panics and triggers severe hot flashes. It's not just feeling warm, the brain's thermostat is actually broken.
Precisely. And beyond the brain, estrogen is heavily involved in the cardiovascular system. It helps keep blood vessels elastic and pliable, protecting against heart disease. And, connecting back to our previous point, it is vital for maintaining the balance between building and breaking down both muscle and bone.
So when Karen entered menopause and her estrogen levels began to wildly fluctuate and eventually plummet, it wasn't just her reproductive system winding down. Her brain, her heart, her muscles, and her skeleton were suddenly operating without their master regulatory hormone.
It is a biological equivalent of an orchestra suddenly losing its conductor. The brass section is playing at the wrong tempo, the strings are out of tune, and the music just turns into noise. That is what brain fog, fatigue, and muscle loss feel like.
No wonder Karen felt sad mad. Her brain was literally starved of the hormone it relied on for clarity. And this brings us to what I think is the most heartbreaking but important takeaway from Karen's review of this section. It's the danger of downgraded expectations.
This is a critical psychological mechanism. When you experience the chaos of menopause and you go to a doctor who tells you it's just aging, you begin to internalize a new, lower baseline for your life.
This raises an important question, and I want to direct this right at everyone listening. Have you lowered the bar for what your body is capable of? Have you accepted chronic pain, a 3.00 p.m. energy crash, or an inability to focus as your new normal simply because a medical professional dismissed you?
It happens so gradually. You go in asking for help because you want to hike a mountain or launch a new startup division, and they tell you, well, given your age, maybe just stick to walking around the neighborhood and reducing your stress.
And you believe them because they have the white coat. So you stop planning the aggressive business expansion. You step back from the high-pressure leadership roles because you don't trust your own stamina. You shrink your ambition to fit the degraded physiological state that a broken medical paradigm handed to you. Karen's entire message is a resounding, aggressive refusal of that status quo.
But refusing the status quo isn't enough on its own. You need a strategic blueprint to build a new one. If you understand the importance of muscle and the reality of menopause, you need to know exactly how to execute the upgrade. And this is where Dr. Wright provides incredible value with what she calls the FACE protocol.
This is the prescriptive part of the book, FACE. It's an acronym. And I want to spend some serious time here because this isn't just a generic workout plan. It's a highly targeted longevity prescription.
It really is.
Let's start with F. F stands for flexibility and mobility.
It is no coincidence that this is the first letter. Before you can load the body with heavy weights, before you can push your cardiovascular system to its limits, you have to ensure the mechanical joints can actually move. Dr. Wright emphasizes protecting the joints, your hips, shoulders, spine, and ankles.
I struggle with this one because stretching feels so unproductive compared to like lifting weights or running. What is actually happening biologically when I focus on mobility?
You are dealing with the fascia and the synovial fluid. Fascia is the connective tissue that wraps around all your muscles and organs. If you sit at a desk for 10 hours a day, that fascia becomes rigid and sticky.
Gross, but okay.
Mobility work hydrates and smooths that tissue. Furthermore, moving your joints through their full range of motion stimulates the production of synovial fluid, which is the biological oil that lubricates the joint capsule.
It's the grease in the gears.
Exactly. If the gears are rusted and dry and you try to force the engine to turn by lifting a heavy weight, you will tear a ligament. Mobility is the absolute prerequisite for all other physical longevity.
Okay, that makes sense. You have to prep the chassis before you race the car. So, moving to aerobic activity. But the protocol is very specific. It doesn't just say go for a jog. It prescribes a foundation of zone 2 training mixed with strategic high-intensity intervals.
Right.
I need you to decode zone 2 for me because it is the biggest buzzword in fitness right now. What does it actually mean biologically?
Zone 2 refers to a specific intensity of cardiovascular exercise. Practically, it's a pace where you are working, you are sweating, but you can still hold a conversation without gasping for air.
Like a brisk uphill walk or a steady cycle.
Yes, but biologically, what you are doing is incredibly profound. When you train in Zone 2, you are forcing your body to use fat as its primary fuel source rather than carbohydrates. But more importantly, you are stimulating mitochondrial biogenesis.
We're back to the mitochondria, the powerhouses.
Zone 2 training actually forces your muscle cells to create more mitochondria, and it makes your existing mitochondria larger and more efficient at producing ATP. You are literally building a bigger metabolic engine.
So it's not just about burning calories in the moment, it's about upgrading the machinery so I have more baseline energy when I'm sitting at my desk 3 days later.
Precisely. But Dr. Wright pairs this steady Zone 2 base with strategic short bursts of high-intensity interval training.
Why both?
Because while Zone 2 builds the mitochondrial base, high intensity pushes your cardiac output. It forces the heart muscle to pump a massive volume of blood quickly, keeping the vascular system elastic and highly adaptable to stress.
Okay, so F is flexibility, A is aerobic capacity. Now we hit C, which ties directly back to our earlier deep dive on muscle. C stands for carrying a load.
This is the heavy resistance training. We already discussed the why, managing insulin, protecting bone density, and maintaining metabolic health. The how is carrying a load. It means moving weight that genuinely challenges your structural capacity.
For someone who has only ever done like 3-pound dumbbells in a spin class, what does challenging your structural capacity look like?
It looks like progressive overload. It means deadlifts, squats, carrying heavy kettlebells across the room. It means that the last 2 repetitions of a movement should feel very difficult to complete with good form.
So it should be hard.
Yes. You are intentionally applying mechanical stress to the tissue so that it micro-tears, and then rebuilds denser and stronger during recovery.
You are sending a biological signal that says, I am not done yet. I still need to be strong.
Yes, you are manually overriding the body's natural inclination to atrophy as it ages.
And finally, the E in the face protocol. Equilibrium and foot speed. I find this one fascinating because if you walk into a commercial gym, you see treadmills and weight racks, but you rarely see people training equilibrium.
And yet, it is arguably the most critical component for independent longevity. Equilibrium is your balance. Foot speed is your agility and reaction time.
Why do those degrade as we age?
Because the communication pathways between your nervous system, your inner ear, the vestibular system, and your proprioceptors in your feet begin to slow down.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you trip on an uneven sidewalk, your brain has to recognize the shift in gravity, send a signal down your spinal cord to your leg, and your foot has to shoot out rapidly to catch your weight. That entire sequence requires lightning-fast neural transmission and muscular foot speed.
The source notes this is explicitly designed to reduce fall risk. And we don't talk enough about how dangerous falling is as we age.
A broken hip in later life is often a catastrophic event. It isn't just an injury that takes a few months to heal. It frequently signals the end of independent living, and statistically, it severely curtails overall lifespan.
That's terrifying.
It is. Dr. Wright's FACE EA protocol, flexibility to move, aerobic for cellular energy, carrying a load for structural armor, and equilibrium to stay upright is a comprehensive defensive strategy against physical decline.
I look at the FACE protocol like a diversified financial portfolio, but for your biology. If you were managing your retirement fund, you wouldn't dump 100% of your assets into a single, highly volatile tech stock. That is reckless.
Totally right.
So why do we think that just walking on a treadmill every day, one single movement pattern, is an adequate investment for our physical future?
It's totally non-diversified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need the reliable, steady bonds of flexibility. You need the aggressive, compounding blue chip stocks of heavy lifting. You need the liquid cash of aerobic capacity and the absolute insurance policy of equilibrium. If you are a leader who understands risk management, you have to diversify your physical investments.
That is a phenomenal analogy, because when you consistently invest across that diverse biological portfolio, and you manage your mental essence with medical advocacy, you achieve the profound outcome described in the next phase of Karen's review.
You manipulate your physiological age.
This concept blows my mind. Dr. Wright draws a hard, scientifically backed line between chronological age and physiological age.
We need to stop conflating the two. Chronological age is dictated by the calendar. It counts how many times you have revolved around the sun. It is linear, it is inevitable, and you have absolutely zero control over it.
But physiological age is entirely different.
Physiological age reflects the actual functional state of your cells and systems. It measures the elasticity of your blood vessels, the density of your bone matrix, the volume of your muscle, and even the length of your telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA.
Wow.
And unlike your chronological age, your physiological age is highly malleable.
I want to make sure I understand the scope of this. Are you saying that through the FACE E protocol and hormonal management, I can be 55 years old chronologically, but have the physiological markers of a 40-year-old?
Absolutely. We see this in clinical data all the time. If you take a sedentary 60-year-old and put them on a progressive resistance and aerobic protocol, within 6 months, their mitochondrial density, their insulin sensitivity, and their muscle mass can rival that of an untrained 35-year-old. You are literally reversing the biological clock on a cellular level.
That is the ultimate form of agency. It means that you are not just a passive victim of time. Every single time you push a heavy weight, every time you choose a nutrient-dense meal, every night you prioritize 8 hours of sleep, you're not just doing a healthy habit.
No, not at all.
You are executing a biological intervention. You are actively, aggressively investing in a younger, more capable future self.
Which brings us perfectly to the synthesis of this entire deep dive. This is where Karen's expertise as a leadership coach unifies everything we've discussed. Because if you have the agency to build this physiological capacity, how does it translate to your professional life?
It all comes back to the danger of compartmentalization. We are so heavily conditioned in the corporate world to build artificial walls. We create the personal bucket. That's where our diet, our sleep, our joint pain, and our menopause symptoms go.
Right.
And then we have the professional bucket. That's where our strategic vision, our emotional intelligence, and our team leadership live.
Karen's harrowing experience proves that those walls do not exist. They are an illusion. The exact same brain that is trying to draft a complex quarterly report is the brain that is being starved of estrogen.
It's the same brain.
Exactly. The exact same physical body that needs to project authority and calm in a tense negotiation is the body that hasn't achieved deep sleep in months and is losing mitochondrial density.
You cannot extract the executive from the biology. Look at the real-world impact Karen described. When she was in the depths of her physical crash, it completely shattered her focus.
And as we know, focus is the absolute currency of effective leadership.
Her brain fog slowed her strategic thinking. Her depleted physical energy compromised her ability to serve her clients at the standards she demanded of herself. She was trying to force high-level professional performance out of a fundamentally depleted biological vessel.
It just doesn't work.
It's like trying to win a Formula One race with a car that has 4 flat tires and no oil. It doesn't matter how good the driver is, the machine will not perform.
The revelation here is deeply empowering, though. When Karen became her own fierce advocate, when she prioritized her physical health, utilized targeted HRT, and began rebuilding her biological foundation, her leadership capacity transformed. But, and this is the crucial distinction, she didn't become a better leader because she attended a seminar on new management techniques.
No. She didn't learn a new way to organize her inbox. She became a radically better leader because she finally possessed the physiological and mental capacity to execute the skills she already had. Her baseline of operation was restored.
The true source of leadership isn't just the frameworks and strategies stored in your intellect. It is the raw physiological energy required to execute those strategies under pressure.
I think this fundamentally redefines what we consider working on your business. For a female executive, an entrepreneur, a leader in midlife, scheduling 90 minutes for the Face protocol, or taking half a day to travel to a specialist who understands mental lessons, is not taking time away from your professional duties.
Not at all.
It is the single most fundamental leadership duty you possess. You are protecting the primary asset.
Protecting the primary asset. That is the exact framing we need. And for the listeners who are deeply resonating with this, who are realizing right now that they have been running their demanding professional software on a failing biological operating system, we want to provide the immediate next steps to start your troubleshooting process.
Yes, because awareness without action is just anxiety. The very first step is to engage directly with the source material we've been unpacking today. You need to read Karen Atiles' full, deeply detailed review of Dr. Wright's book. You can find it on Karen's blog at lifelongdevelopment.com.
And Karen has done something brilliant for her readers. Because she understands the gap between knowing this information and actually implementing it in a busy life, she created a free resource to accompany the review. It is called the Unbreakable Leader's Healthspan Toolkit.
I love a good toolkit. What's inside it?
It is highly practical. It includes a quick reference card breaking down Dr. Wright's Face protocol so you can immediately apply it to your training. It features a Healthspan self-audit, allowing you to establish a baseline of where your physiology currently stands.
Oh, that's helpful.
And most importantly, it includes 5 highly specific questions to take directly to your doctor.
Oh, that is crucial. Scripts for the doctor's office, so you don't get railroaded by the "you're just getting older" excuse.
Exactly. It equips you to be the advocate you need to be. You can download that entire toolkit at lifelongdevelopment.com. While you are there, I highly recommend looking into Karen's keynote speech, which perfectly encapsulates everything we've explored today. It is titled Sustainable Leadership, Protecting the Asset Behind Every Decision.
And for those who are drawn to Karen's deep expertise in resilience, how we cognitively and structurally adapt to massive challenges, you should absolutely explore her intentional resilience framework. You can take her proprietary IRX assessment to see where your resilience baseline is by visiting intentionalresilience.me.
And naturally, the medical foundation for today's biological discussion, Dr. Vonda Wright's phenomenal book, Unbreakable. A Woman's Guide to Aging with Power is prominently linked right there in Karen's blog post. It is essential reading for anyone ready to take control of their health span.
As we bring all these threads together, the overarching message here is not one of fear about aging or decline. It is a message of profound, radical hope and agency. Unbreakable, especially when viewed through Karen's sharp leadership lens, is a manual for taking fierce ownership of your future.
The central shift in mindset is this. Dedicating time, resources, and relentless energy to your physical health is not a selfish act.
Right.
Demanding competent medical care is not being difficult. Prioritizing your muscle mass and hormonal balance over another hour of answering emails is the ultimate, non-negotiable investment in the people you love, the teams you lead, and the visionary you are meant to be.
So we want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to mull over as you go about your week. Early in this deep dive, we asked you to consider what area of your physical health you have quietly accepted as just getting older, that desperately deserves a second opinion.
Yeah.
But based on what we now know about the inseparable link between physical capacity and professional leadership, let's push that question even further. If you were to apply the exact same ruthless, uncompromising, analytical problem-solving standard to your own physical health that you apply to your most critical corporate business challenges, what would you discover you have been tolerating?
It is a question that demands a total paradigm shift. And a final, brief reminder as we conclude our time together. This deep dive has been an exploration of one leader's powerful personal narrative and informational biological research.
Yes, very important.
Always be your own fiercest advocate and consult with your own medical professionals regarding your health and treatment plans.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Go protect your greatest asset.